And eventually Ernest left. See, that show you, illustrating what I said before. While before the family said, you know, it's too far. Then you had 35, the Nuremberg laws, and then Ernest was ready to go. You know, completely. You know, the Nuremberg law were a decisive section in the Nazi period. And then he went to Australia, and he sent gloomy reports, not gloomy, wonderful reports how great things were there. But in fact, he published some articles in the TV-Zeitung, you know, with the result that many people tried to get to Australia. In fact, he didn't have a job, you know, but he sort of wanted to encourage people also to go. You know, it was a general feeling at the time. So then eventually, Julian helped us 1938 to get out to Australia. The only problem was, of course, how to get there. And there were, see, this is a kind of this international cooperation which you could not have been done without the consent of the Nazis. We paid in Germany for our trip to Australia with Canadian Pacific Line via America. We went first to London, and from London through Canada, and from Vancouver by boat to Australia. See, later on, the main problem for people was how to get out. And they just crossed the border and hoped the Jewish organization will help them. We paid with our money in Germany. And see, this is just the question which you raised before. This arrangement could be done only with the consent of the Nazis.
Because the Nazis were interested in Jewish immigration.
Exactly, you know. And this is how we came to Australia.
Okay, another question I want to ask you. You were in Frankfurt when there did take place really very important international events. Let us say the Germans crossed the Rhine, not far away from Frankfurt. Rheinüberquerung. No. Really, Germany occupied again the left shore of the Rhine, 935, 34. Do you remember that?
Really? Wait a minute. I really must getting old. No.
No.
What do you mean? See, there were some problems in the Saar, you know, this Saar.
Okay, that's later. So we dropped it.
Listen,
We dropped it. Did you have some contact in the TV with so-called Halbjuden, half-Jews?
Yes. Well, sure, there was.
What was do you have some details to tell?
I mean, not at the time before Hitler, but after the Hitler, as Hitler didn't make any difference, you know.
Yes.
Well, they were all included. People like to get out, and therefore, you know, people like to be Jews, be known as Jews. I mean, they didn't make. Of course, we had contact with them. They contacted.
What kind of contact?
Well, actually, I think they got this. As we are concerned, as best of my recollection, we didn't differentiate. The only thing is whether people at the other end would differentiate. Well, I don't know. I think the Hilfsverein, for example, would have been very generous in interpretation. After all, it was a life-saving affair, you know.
Yes.
And I would think, all things being equal, one would have given preference to Jews. But basically, I would think Halbjuden would have been included in all these schemes, because the Nazis didn't make any difference.
Okay, I understand. But did your relations with so-called Ostjuden change after the beginning of the war, or beginning of the after the Nazis coming to power?
Look, if you mean me personally or the organization?
You personally and the organization.
Well, look, don't assume that I had I made a differentiation. After all, look,
my parents made. I remember.
Yes, well.
My parents made, I remember in my family, that before 1933, one of my cousins married an Ostjude. It was a whole disaster in the family.
Yes. No. As far as I'm concerned, my attitude was one liberal. Well, actually, I put it to this way. I went to a school where I was only one Jewish boy, mostly in the class. I was in a very, very small minority all the time. So I was all the time under a very strong nationalistic German influence. And I think until I got a bit more sense, I think I followed this, you know. I remember during the First World War, I was quite enthusiastic. I wrote poems, pro-German, poems against England, all this. But as I grew up and I thought, you know, being Jewish brought more problems, and particularly through Ludwig Diesen, the youth movement, we had all the time, we had many so-called Ostjews there. They lived in Berlin, and I didn't make any differentiation. As far as the CV is concerned, it's a very strange thing. In certain respects, they suddenly became proud Poles because they're not Germans, which helped them up to a point in their negotiations with the German authorities. See, whatever you may call Ostjews, they may have been Poles or Russian or I don't know what.
Czechs.
Yes, you know. So they had non-German passports or non-German nationalities, and for a while it was a very good instrument to get some advantage. See, in a sort of mousetrap situation in which we were, people used whatever little small minute advantage they could get, and a Polish passport nationality or this was helpful. Therefore, we somehow envied the Polish Jews being Polish. You know?
I understand. But in CV didn't make a difference.
No, I don't.
In Frankfurt.
No. Well, you know, Frankfurt Jewry was always very proud and very Frankfurt. In fact, Frankfurt, you were a Frankfurt Jew. That means you were not a Jew from Berlin or from Breslau, somewhere else, you know. So it was not so much against the Ostjew or somebody. It was the
foreigners.
Exactly, who were not from Frankfurt, you know.
Well, so-called local patriotism.
Yes, and look, the Frankfurt Jewish community has a wonderful record, you know, and look, they did terrific things. But no, I cannot recollect any particular.
Do you remember the event when the people were sent to Dachau and came back after the Kristallnacht?
No, Kristall, I wasn't there.
No, you were there. But they were the first time sent to Dachau. It means 33, 34.
Yes.
Then people came back from Dachau.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember in Frankfurt a certain kind of impression of this event?
Well, people didn't talk about it.
Didn't talk about it?
No. Well, I mean, you heard things here and there. Look, you heard a lot of things, you know. But no, people didn't talk about it.
Were afraid?
Yes, or you know, where see people suppressed their things. I mean, they were so horrible, you know, what they experienced.
I understand.
See, the shock was such that people didn't talk about it. I know that people came back, and people just said, and they even didn't say where they were. You know, I remember, and also you could see it. They looked shaven heads and, you know, scars in their face and all this. You didn't ask questions. See, this is something which one never can reconstruct. I call it a kind of a mousetrap. You know, you were completely caught up in it.
Another question. I ask just questions. You
Yes,
see.
sure. It's very good.
Another question is really about the help given to Jews, needy Jews in Frankfurt. There were a lot of Jews who didn't have any kind of parnusse.
Yeah.
I know my own parents came from the village to Frankfurt without work, without money, without anything.
Mm-hmm.
So how was this organized in Frankfurt? And did the CFV take a part in it?
Well, not directly, but I mean, as I say, all the efforts were sort of coordinated. It was not our main responsibility. But for example, if in the course, see, we call it, the word comes not to my mind, Auswanderungsberatung. If in the course of Auswanderungsberatung, we could see there are some problems concerning, see, the young people want to go away, everything was prepared, they're worried what happens to their parents, you know. Now, then I would ring or go to the Jüdische Gemeinde or Provinzialverband Jüdischer Wohlfahrtspflege, and
Provinzialverband?
Jüdischer Wohlfahrtspflege.
Jüdischer Wohlfahrtspflege?
Yeah, for Hessen-Nassau, and would draw the attention to this case, and they would ask me back and said, see, somebody would come to them for help. and say, we were told the children are going away, but they're worried what will happen to themselves. What do you know about them? There was a very close coordination, you know. You know yourself, under pressure, Jews can do terrific things. But unfortunately, it's always, we need some pressure from outside, you know.
I understand. And what was the relationship with the so-called different communities in Frankfurt? I know that before the war, before 1933, was a very big antagonism between the Orthodox and the liberals. What did happen with this later?
Look, I can tell you something about this. This is a very interesting thing.
Yes.
Now, first of all, you had what they called the Einheitsgemeinde. Within the Einheitsgemeinde, you had all ranges from the Orthodox to the liberal, you know. But then you had the Austrittsgemeinde, the Aguda, you know.
Austrittsgemeinde.
Yeah, the Austrittsgemeinde, Aguda.
Yeah.
Now, everybody had his special Palestina Amt. One was the Jewish Agency, and the Aguda had their special Palestine office. Special Palestine office, you know, the Aguda, which has nothing to do with this Agudas we have here now. Now, there was a Dr. Ehrmann, and he was the Zentralverein as such was not connected, was not related to any religious differentiations. So Dr. Ehrmann was a very active member of our board, you would say, today. And I remember, see, they had their own paper and all this, was published in Wiesbaden by Dr. Rabbi Ansbacher. I remember this quite clearly. And the head of the Palestine Amt of the Agudas, of this Aguda, was Dr. Ehrmann. And I remember, while before this, there was Jewish Agency, Palestine Office of the Agudas. It all came together. At the end, it didn't matter anymore. It didn't matter anymore. There was only one thing, which fortunately didn't have too many after effects. There was a fire in a
Fire.
a fire, which was Brandstiftung by a very prominent Jew of the Austrittsgemeinde. Wohlfahrt, Wohlfahrt, was a very well-known business, and of course everybody knew he was a Jew, and it could have taken very, very nasty effects on the whole Jewish community.
Why did he do that?
But during the middle of the night. Why? Why? Well, I don't know.
To get money from the insurance company?
Well, I guess so.
You guess so?
Yes. But I mean, I can't make any definite statements about this. His solicitor at the time was a Horowitz, Abraham Horowitz, who the uncle of Dr. Menachem Horowitz. You know him first. He's a Mizrahi Tassar, Dr. Menachem Horowitz.
Yes.
And people were very, very lucky that no major pogrom came out of this. That's one thing. And the other thing which comes to my mind in this connection, something extraordinary happened. And I heard this only here after I came here. You know, on the Frankfurt Jewish Cemetery, there was a wall separating the Einheitsgemeinde and the Agudas. There was a wall separating them.
Mm-hmm.
And this wall was destroyed during the war.
From the war?
During the war. But one doesn't know whether it was done by Allied bombs or whether some Jews did it or whoever did this. I was told by some Jew from Haifa who wrote to me about it because they thought I know about this. But, you know, it's a kind of providence that this war be separated, the one part of the Jewish cemetery from the other.
Okay, and may I ask you now another question regarding the Jugendaliyah in Frankfurt?
Mm-hmm.
Did you take any part in the Jugendaliyah as CV?
Well, I mean, this was part of the general emigration attempt, sure. And as I indicated before, even the movement, this office, though it was not official youth aliyah, the office of Dr. Ehrmann was also involved in this.
Dr. Ehrmann means of the Agudas, Israel.
Yes. Oh yes. Look, we did everything to encourage emigration. See, this was our main thing, if no other thing, to have an alibi, or alibi, as you may call it, towards the Gestapo, you know?
Now, I want to ask you some questions which came up when I read your article in the Tiz book.
Okay.
My first question is really, you were talking about a certain kind of Jewish identity.
Mm-hmm.
Look, before 1933, I would say there were two Jewish identities. One Jewish identity, Deutsch-Jüdische identity, German Jewish identity. It means Deutsche Staatsbürger jüdischen Glaubens, CV, and the Zionist identity, maybe another identity, the Orthodox identity. And after 1933, you said that you were dealing with immigration, etc. But what kind of Jewish identity did really the CV people imagine? What kind of, because the whole ideological basis disappeared. There couldn't be any more Deutsche Staatsbürger jüdischen Glaubens. What kind of Jewish identity did they develop?
Dr. Kaufmann, see.
Didn't you talk about that at all?
Oh yes, we talked a lot about it. We read about it.
This is one of my questions coming out from your article.
Yes. Now look, the position is this. The whole thing wasn't. There are two levels. First of all, the whole thing wasn't black and white. That you had on one hand is sort of these formal Deutsche Staatsbürger jüdischen Glaubens, on the other hand, you know, the Zionist. There was in between. There were various shades. Moreover, this terminology, Zentralverein Deutsche Staatsbürger jüdischen Glaubens, comes from a time, the end of last century, when it had more meaning in the context of the day. So I think as we came into this century and closer, more experience with the modern kind of anti-Semitism, these differences gradually disappeared, and I would say it was the leadership of people like Ludwig Tietz and others. There was Leo Beck, who at that time was a very active person in the Zentralverein, who came to a concept which we described as Gesamtjüdisch. See, it was not the exclusion, one thing or the other. See,
you're talking about the totality of Jewish life, more or less.
No,
Gesamtjüdisch.
No. It's different. See, this original concept, Deutscher Staatsbürger jüdischen Glaubens, has a main emphasis on the basic is the German nationality and culture.
Deutschtum.
And
Jewish, Deutschtum?
Well, whatever you understand with this term. And the other one was the main religious thing.
Yes.
Now, as we move to a time where more and more pluralistic concepts were accepted, we see the original approach was, you may have read Jakob Wassermann, you know these things, My Weg als Deutscher Jude, and these kinds of things. But as time moved on, beginning of this century, prior to Hitler's coming to power, the pluralistic approach became more and more in the foreground. And it was not the exclusiveness of one thing against the other. And if I look back today, and if you look around everywhere, I went to German school, I went to German universities, and of course I was brought up in the Deutschen Kulturkreis, right? At the same time, my life and my fate is influenced by the fact that, and was, or at that time, that we were made aware of it by the fact that we are Jews. See, we didn't deny that we are Jews, we didn't say Jewish thing is something on the periphery. Being a Jew was an essential part of our lives. So we refused to deny that anything Jewish, or I put it this way, we accepted the fact that we cannot escape the fact that we are Jews, and we have to Ja sagen zum Juden. We have to accept it.
To realize it.
Yes, and not only to tolerate this, but also to implement it on our level, you know, some in the religious field, some in cultural field, social field, whatever you want to. So the whole, I would say the whole rainbow has sort of has changed. I don't know whether I expressed myself clear enough, but while it's the time of the foundation of the Zentralverein and of the Zionism of the day, you know, you had this polarization. They were in between thinking and discussions and writing and fights and arguments this way. But there was another level too, which came in very strongly. The very, very strong communist influence, Russia, you know, which played a very, very big part. And it was, I think, not so much under the impact of this Deutschtum, or what you call Deutschtum, but also the influence of the communist ideology, which made us to change our attitude to a positive attitude toward Judaism. Do you understand what I...
Ideology of internationalism. If we're talking about communism.
Not internationalism. No, communism.
Communism.
It's not internationalism. No, communism is a socialist of the socialist society, not internationalist. Socialist society.
And influenced you?
No, I didn't say it influenced me. I said...
Not you personally, but the Jews.
No, I say this development of an assumption to a positive attitude toward Judaism was not only in answer to an overemphasis of the assimilation towards Deutschtum, the German things, but also towards the communist ideology. See, you had the attack. I remember, for example, there was a big thing at the time, Birobidzhan. This was a word, you know, Birobidzhan or Palestine. You know, Birobidzhan was a Jewish settlement in Russia. I don't know heard about this.
Yes, certainly.
Yes, and see, these were all this came across, and then of course, on top of this, then came Hitler. You know. And another thing too, which really should be written up by someone. See, Hitler came 33. In 32, as I said, we had the Depression. And see, it's a fact which has to be acknowledged. At the time when Hitler came, yes, the economic situation of German Jews wasn't everywhere wonderful.
Certainly.
See, it was the post-inflation time, and things didn't go too well. See, you have to consider this too, which brought, particularly amongst the younger generation, a lot of question marks.
I understand. Yeah, I want to ask another question.
Is that an answer to your question?
Yeah, I understand that the Jewish identity after 1933 wasn't really clear-cut.
No, not what, it started before this. I want to make this clear because, see, at that time, see, I remember clearly, the Jewish agency was changed repeatedly, and there was a strong move. I think it was in the beginning of the 30s to bring into the Jewish agency.
1929, August.
Yes, the non-Zionist.
Enlargement of the Jewish agency in Zurich.
Non-Zionist.
Yes.
See, this was the time when this whole concept, this is closely related to this, you know?
I understand. Then I know that all the Ludwig Tietz went to Zurich to participate in the meeting of the enlargement of the Jewish agency.
Yeah.
And look, I'm talking about not only 33. The whole identity of the German Jews was very much in flux this time, I understand.
Yes. But already before 33.
Before 33, very
now,
well.
And this was sort of, you know, the economic condition had something to do with it.
I understand. Another question, maybe it's my last one, deals. You said that the murder of Arlosoroff, it influenced negatively the trend or the possibilities of the Aliyah to Palestine. You wrote it in your article. What do you mean?
Did I say this?
Yes.
I don't know. This is meant in a not in a tangible way, you know, but see, which was meant that people give another thought. See, what happened was this: there were several chances for immigration, right? Amongst the Palestine was one of them. Now, as this came over the air, and people didn't know to do this, it created a certain shock. Possibly, I wouldn't say weit zurückwarf, you know, influence. It may have been better if I would say influenced, you know? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because I really didn't understand the meaning. It means that the internal...
See, I would say, as a result of this, people who were undecided were more influenced to follow up other alternatives.
I understand.
Yeah?
I understand.
Well, I don't know. It's... do you know what happened with this? This is a translation from my English into German, and the person who... I really, until you mentioned to me, I didn't aware of it. It really had a panic effect, which is true. See, also you must see this mousetrap situation, you know?
Yeah.
You hope to go to Palestine, and then you hear one of the leaders is murdered there, you know? It must be very unsafe there. You come from one trap into another. This really what
it means German Jewry was looking for security. And then suddenly it came out that even in Palestine is no security. And this was a certain effect of shock.
Exactly.
And brought about people to think, let us find some other place where there is more security. This you mean?
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Look, I understand that I really ask you a lot of questions, and I want to ask you one concluding question.
Mm-hmm.
You went to Australia, and then you were living in Australia a lot of time. And did you have any contact with German Jewry and with Germany? And why did you come back and go then to Israel?
Well, I don't. I mean, of course, all the time in Australia, of course, we had contact with German Jews everywhere.
Yes.
Of course, they have made the most decisive influence of development of Australian Jewry. You must realize that when we came to Australia, the Australian Jewish population, the total Jewish population was 25,000 Jews, and now it is over 70,000.
And did you feel yourself a German Jew in Australia?
Well, what do you mean by German Jew?
It means, did you still feel yourself belong to the German culture circle?
Well, as I told you before, I can't help, I cannot deny the fact that I was brought up in German academic institutions, and this is part of my life, my background. At the same time, I would say the Australian atmosphere has been so encouraging, so accepted. I feel today a real Australian. Yeah. I'm the proudest Australian you can imagine. It's one, I think, one of the best country in the world. I had there the best chance in my life, and I could talk to the Prime Minister and to anybody, and I really, whatever I have achieved in Australia and through Australia, and I can show you, day after tomorrow I'm invited Australian ambassador, and one of my efforts, perhaps very proud of this year, the first time in Australian the stand of the Jerusalem International Book Fair, and well, as far as Germans concerned, I put it the other way around, and I want to emphasize this. I never spoke German in Australia. I only started to speak with my wife German since we came to Israel. The German was completely, we had nothing
out of bounds.
No, I mean, nobody spoke German, and there was no need for this, you know. And I think the major part of my life I lived in Australia, and therefore, look, it's not showing off, but I'm writing in English, you know, and I prefer, so I speak with an accent, I prefer speaking English, because I can express myself much more precise what I want to say in English. And my contact with Germany, I want to make it 100% clear, was only reawakened through my aliyah to Eretz Israel.
I understand. So thank you very much, Dr. Matsdorf. It was a pleasure listening to you.
Well, I don't know whether I've been helpful, but this is more or less, look, there's so much to be said. It's very, very difficult to sort of condense it, but it's a very subjective attempt to give you the information you want. If there anything you want to refer to me, I'm always happy to cooperate, because one day I'm not here anymore, and see what